The dying star cast an eerie crimson glow across the bridge of the Avalon Research Station. Dr. Sarah Chen stood motionless before the quantum imaging array, her weathered hands trembling as she processed what the long-range sensors were telling her. After 30 years of watching and waiting, humanity's greatest fear had finally manifested. "Confirm these readings," she ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Run a full spectrum analysis on grid sector 117. The station's AI responded immediately, its holographic interface painting the observation deck in sheets of data. "Confirmed, Doctor. Multiple quantum wake signatures detected. Mass displacement patterns match historical records of Meridian high ships. Conservative estimate suggests a fleet of at least 300 vessels." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 2 decades of preparation settle onto her shoulders. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel in 2157, they had expected to find a galaxy teeming with life. Instead, they found only ruins, countless civilizations reduced to cosmic debris by an unstoppable force. The Meridians, a hive-mind species that consumed everything in their path, transforming organic matter into more of their own kind. "Send the Phoenix Protocol signal," Sarah commanded, activating her neural link to Earth's Defense Command. "Authorization, Chen, Alpha 790. The signal would travel through quantum channels humanity had spent years secretly installing throughout nearby star systems. Within minutes, every military installation in Sol space would begin final preparations for the conflict they had spent generations preparing for. Admiral James Torres stood in the massive underground chamber beneath the Martian surface, watching as kilometers of machinery hummed to life. Project Phoenix had been humanity's best-kept secret, a military-industrial complex that dwarfed anything in recorded history. While the public lived their lives in peaceful solar colonies, underneath every major settlement in the Sol system lay weapons of war that would make ancient nuclear arsenals look like children's toys. "Status report," he barked, his cybernetic eye scanning multiple holographic readouts simultaneously. Colonel Maya Patel stepped forward, her dark skin illuminated by the soft blue glow of status screens. "All Phoenix sites reporting ready, sir. The Artemis defense grid is powering up, and the Titan shipyards are beginning mass production of the Wraith-class vessels." Torres nodded grimly. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this moment, ever since their first stealth probes had detected the Meridian threat. While other species had faced the hive mind with biological weapons and energy-based technology, humanity had taken a different approach. They had built their defenses not on matching the Meridian's adaptive capabilities, but on overwhelming them with sheer industrial might. "Begin Phase 1, Torres ordered. "Deploy the Ghost Fleet." Throughout the solar system, massive hangar doors began to open. From beneath the surfaces of Mars, Venus, and dozens of asteroids, ships emerged, but not the sleek, energy-powered vessels other species favored. These were behemoths of hardened steel and tungsten, powered by miniaturized fusion reactors and armed with weaponry that would have seemed primitive to most spacefaring races. Sarah watched from the Avalon station as humanity's first line of defense took shape. The Ghost Fleet, hundreds of automated vessels designed to test the Meridian's capabilities while gathering combat data. Each ship was essentially disposable, built to die while teaching humanity how their enemy fought. "Dr. Chen," the AI interrupted her thoughts, "we're detecting unusual patterns in the Meridian Fleet's formation. They appear to be consuming a star system." Sarah activated the long-range visuals, and her blood ran cold. The Meridian ships had surrounded a yellow dwarf star, their organic hulls pulsing with eldritch energy as they literally devoured the stellar matter. This was new behavior, something not recorded in any of the ancient ruins they'd studied. "They're evolving," she whispered, "faster than we predicted." She opened a channel to Defense Command. "Admiral Torres, you need to see this. The Meridians aren't just consuming planets anymore. They're eating stars." Torres received the data stream, his cybernetic eye whirring as it processed the implications. "How long until they reach Sol space?" at their current velocity. Sarah checked the calculations. 3 weeks. Maybe less if they continue to accelerate their evolution rate. Then we stick to the plan, Torres replied firmly. Humanity didn't spend 50 years hiding and building for nothing. We knew they were coming. We knew they'd be stronger than anything we'd seen before. He paused, watching as another wave of ships emerged from the Martian shipyards. The difference is, they don't know we're waiting. As the first wave of the Ghost Fleet moved into position, humanity's greatest gamble was about to begin. They had spent generations preparing not just weapons and ships, but strategies that defied conventional space warfare. The Meridians were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous prey was the one that saw you coming. The Titan shipyards beneath Saturn's largest moon hummed with activity that would have seemed impossible mere decades ago. Colonel Maya Patel walked through the massive production facility, her footsteps echoing off walls that stretched for kilometers. Around her, automated assembly lines churned out components for humanity's greatest weapons of war. Production efficiency at 98.7%, reported her AI assistant, AI. The first wave of Behemoth-class battleships will be complete within 72 hours. Maya watched as robotic arms, the size of small buildings, assembled what looked like primitive projectile weapons. The Meridians would be expecting energy weapons, shields, and other advanced technology. Instead, they would face tungsten rods accelerated to relativistic speeds, magnetic weaponry that could tear apart ships at the atomic level, and warheads that could create artificial singularities. Status of Project Prometheus, she asked, approaching a sealed blast door marked with highest-level security warnings. The massive door slid open, revealing humanity's ace in the hole. Inside the chamber, suspended in a containment field, floated what appeared to be a small star. But this was no natural phenomenon. It was humanity's greatest achievement in weapons technology. The artificial quantum star is stable, Araya reported. All 12 Prometheus devices are ready for deployment. Though I must again register my concern about the ethical implications of weapons that can alter the fundamental constants of spacetime. Maya smiled grimly. The ethics of survival are simple, Araya. We either win this war, or every human being ceases to exist. Back on Mars, Admiral Torres stood in the Strategic Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching Meridian fleet. The Ghost Fleet's first engagement had provided valuable data. The automated ships had lasted less than an hour against the Meridians, but their sacrifice had revealed crucial weaknesses in the hive mind's tactical algorithms. They adapt through consumption. Dr. Chen's voice came through the quantum link. But they can only evolve based on what they encounter. Every weapon they haven't seen before requires them to sacrifice ships to develop countermeasures. Torres nodded, watching the tactical simulations play out. Then we give them too many new things to adapt to. Maya, status of the Phoenix Arsenal. Colonel Patel's hologram appeared beside Chen's. Ready for deployment, sir. We have enough manufactured material to fight a war lasting 50 years. The automated factories can replace our entire fleet every 2 weeks if necessary. And the special projects. The Prometheus devices are ready. We've also completed the quantum entanglement network. Every ship in the fleet will be able to coordinate attacks with zero communication delay. Torres allowed himself a moment of pride. While the Meridians had evolved into perfect predators, humanity had evolved in a different way. They had turned their entire solar system into a war machine, hidden beneath a veneer of peaceful civilian development. New data from the quantum imaging array, Dr. Chen interrupted. The Meridian fleet has changed course. They're accelerating faster than predicted. Time to intercept is now 8 days. Torres activated the command channel, his voice reaching every military installation in the solar system. This is Admiral Torres. Initialize Phoenix Protocol Stage 2. I repeat, Stage 2 is now active. Across the solar system, hidden installations began to emerge. The civilian populations watched in awe as massive military complexes rose from beneath the surfaces of planets and moons. Ships that dwarfed anything humanity had publicly acknowledged took up defensive positions around major population centers. In the Titan shipyards, Maya supervised the loading of the Prometheus devices into their delivery vehicles. Each one represented the power to reshape reality itself, a weapon born from humanity's understanding that the laws of physics themselves could be weaponized. Final checks complete, Araya announced. All systems are nominal, though I calculate a 47% chance that using these weapons will have unforeseen consequences on local spacetime. Better than the 100% chance of extinction if we lose, Maya replied. She opened a channel to Admiral Torres. Sir, the Prometheus fleet is ready for deployment. We can launch within the hour. Torres looked at the tactical display, where the Meridian fleet's position was marked in angry red. They had consumed 3 more star systems in their approach to Sol, their ships growing larger and more grotesque with each absorption. Deploy the fleet, he ordered, but hold the Prometheus weapons in reserve. Let's see how they handle our conventional surprises first. He turned to Dr. Chen's hologram. Doctor, your prediction models have been accurate so far. What are our chances? Sarah Chen studied the data streams flowing through her neural link. The Meridians have never encountered a species that prepared for them. Admiral, every civilization they've destroyed faced them with existing technology. Try to adapt after the fact. We're the first to spend generations building weapons specifically to kill them. That's not an answer, Doctor. No, she agreed. But it's the only advantage we need. They evolved through combat. We evolved through preparation. Let's see which strategy works better. As humanity's real fleet took up battle positions, the solar system itself seemed to hold its breath. 50 years of preparation were about to be tested against an enemy that had never known defeat. But humanity had done what it did best. They had prepared, innovated, and built on a scale that defied imagination. The Meridians were about to learn that evolution wasn't always about adapting to what you face. Sometimes, it was about making sure your enemy faced something they could never adapt to fast enough to survive. The void between Neptune's orbit and the Kuiper Belt erupted with activity as humanity's battle fleet took up defensive positions. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the flagship Thermopylae, watching as thousands of ships moved with precision that would have seemed impossible for their massive size. Meridian fleet approaching the outer defense line, reported Lieutenant Sarah Wong, her fingers dancing across tactical controls. Their biological signatures are changing. The lead ships appear to be developing new organic structures. Torres nodded grimly. They're already trying to adapt, and we haven't even engaged yet. Deploy the first wave of countermeasures. Across the defensive line, smaller ships began launching what appeared to be simple metallic spheres. Millions of them, creating a glittering barrier between humanity's fleet and the approaching hive mind. The Meridians' initial response was predictable. Their forward ships began consuming the spheres, incorporating the material into their ever-evolving forms. Nanite swarms activated, Colonel Patel reported from her command post in the secondary fleet. The Meridians are reacting exactly as predicted. The tiny machines, designed to appear as simple metals, were actually carrying viral code that began infecting the Meridians' biological computing systems. Ships that had been moving with perfect coordination began to twitch and stutter, their hive-mind connection disrupted by the microscopic invaders. Multiple Meridian vessels showing signs of confusion, Wong announced. Their formation is breaking down. But the victory was short-lived. Within minutes, the massive alien ships began purging the infected sections, their biological components evolving new defenses against the nanite threat. What they didn't realize was that this had been precisely the point. All ships, execute Operation Starkler, Torres commanded. Launch primary weapons. Pattern Delta. The human fleet's response was devastating in its simplicity. Instead of energy weapons or exotic technology, they unleashed a barrage of kinetic projectiles. Tungsten rods accelerated to near-light speed by massive coil guns. The Meridians, their defenses optimized to counter the nanite threat, found themselves facing an ancient weapon made apocalyptic by modern engineering. Space itself seemed to shudder as the relativistic kill vehicle struck home. Meridian ships, some larger than small moons, were literally vaporized by impacts that released energy comparable to nuclear weapons. Their adaptive armor, evolved to resist energy weapons and biological attacks, proved useless against pure kinetic force. Multiple confirmed kills, Wang reported, her voice steady despite the destruction displayed on her screens. The Meridians are attempting to adapt, growing denser armor plating. As expected, Torres replied. Colonel Patel deployed the magnetic disruptors. The second wave of human ships moved forward, activating weapons that had seemed primitive when first designed. Massive electromagnetic pulses, far more powerful than anything Earth's atmosphere had ever contained, washed over the Meridian fleet. Ships that had survived the kinetic barrage found their biological components torn apart at the molecular level by magnetic fields, strong enough to affect atomic bonds. Dr. Chen's hologram appeared on the bridge, her expression a mixture of awe and scientific fascination. The Meridians are attempting to evolve electromagnetic shielding, but they can't adapt fast enough to counter both threats simultaneously. Their evolution rate is actually working against them. New adaptations are making them more vulnerable to secondary weapons. The battle continued to unfold, a testament to humanity's long preparation. Every time the Meridians evolved a defense against one weapon, they found themselves vulnerable to 3 others. Ships that developed shields against kinetic impacts were torn apart by magnetic weapons. Those that evolved magnetic resistance were shredded by clouds of self-replicating nanites. Each adaptation cost them ships and time they couldn't afford to lose. Sir, Wang's voice cut through the tactical updates. We're detecting a power surge in the remaining Meridian vessels. Energy readings are off the charts. The surviving alien ships were changing, their organic forms merging into massive structures that dwarfed even their previous configurations. The hive mind was attempting to combine its resources, creating smaller numbers of much larger and more powerful vessels. They're learning, Torres observed, but not fast enough. Dr. Chen, your analysis. Sarah studied the data streaming through her neural link. They're following predictable evolution patterns. Admiral, by combining ships, they're actually reducing their tactical flexibility. More importantly, they're burning through their biological resources at an unsustainable rate. Torres allowed himself a grim smile. Then it's time for the killing blow. All ships, execute final attack pattern. Deploy the gravity bombs. From the human fleet came a new weapon, one the Meridians had never encountered in all their centuries of conquest. Small, unassuming devices that created localized disruptions in spacetime itself. The massive combined Meridian ships, their very size now working against them, found themselves being torn apart by artificial singularities that turned their own mass into a weapon. Meridian fleet is in full retreat, Wang announced, her voice now carrying a note of triumph. Survivors are attempting to flee the system. Let them run, Torres ordered. They'll carry word back to their hive mind. Humanity isn't prey. We're the predator they never saw coming. As the remnants of the Meridian fleet flood into deep space, the human forces began to regroup. This had been only the first battle, but it had proven what humanity had spent 50 years preparing to demonstrate. Sometimes the best evolution wasn't biological adaptation, but careful, methodical preparation for war. Deep within the Thermopyla's Tactical Command Center, Admiral Torres studied the quantum maps showing the location of the Meridian home systems. The retreating hive mind ships had led humanity's stealth probes right to their source, a massive cluster of systems where stars pulsed with unnatural rhythms, transformed by Meridian bioengineering into living incubators for their species. The scale of it, Dr. Chen whispered, her hologram walking through the 3-dimensional star map. They've converted over 300 stars into biological processors. The entire cluster is one giant neural network. Colonel Patel's tactical overlay highlighted defensive formations around the cluster. Standard patrol patterns suggest they've never faced a serious threat here. They're configured to spot large fleet movements, not our kind of surgical strike. Then we stick to the plan. Torres decided. Operation Deadbolt commences in 6 hours. Prep the Prometheus devices. The mission that followed would reshape the galaxy's understanding of warfare. While the main human fleet engaged Meridian forces near the sector's edge, drawing their adaptive defenders away from the core systems, a smaller task force slipped through the gaps in their defense grid. Maya stood on the bridge of the stealth carrier Shadow of Earth, watching as her crew made final preparations. The ship, along with its 2 sisters, had been designed for this exact mission. Their hulls, covered in metamaterials that absorbed all forms of radiation, were practically invisible to Meridian biosensors. Prometheus devices show ready, Air reported. Though I must note that deploying all 12 simultaneously has never been tested outside simulation. The Meridians have never been tested against weapons that alter spacetime, Maya replied. That's the point. The strike force penetrated deeper into Meridian space, passing massive organic structures that defied conventional physics. Entire planets have been transformed into processing nodes for the hive mind, their surfaces writhing with biological computers that coordinated the species' evolution. Multiple biosignatures ahead, Lieutenant Wong reported from her tactical station aboard Thermopyla. They're different from what we've encountered, more primitive, but also more numerous. The sensor feeds showed endless swarms of smaller Meridian organisms, each one barely larger than a human fighter. These weren't the evolved warships they'd faced before. These were the species in its original form, before all the adaptations and consumption of advanced technology. This is where they spawn, Dr. Chen realized, her neural link processing the data. These systems aren't just their headquarters, they're nurseries. Each of those organisms will eventually grow into one of their capital ships. Torres watched as the strike force approached its target coordinates. Everything humanity had built, every weapon they'd designed, had led to this moment. Colonel Patel, you have weapons free. Show them why we spent 50 years building the Prometheus devices. The deployment was precisely coordinated. 12 points in spacetime, arranged in a geometric pattern that had taken supercomputers decades to calculate. From each stealth carrier emerged a device that contained what appeared to be a miniature star. But these were no ordinary stellar masses. Prometheus devices armed, Maya reported, her voice steady despite the enormous power under her command. Quantum synchronization in progress. We'll only have one shot at this. The devices activated simultaneously, creating a web of quantum fields that connected them into a single weapon system. The Meridians, finally detecting the intrusion, began to react. Swarms of primitive organisms turned toward the human ships, their bodies already beginning the evolution process that had made their species so formidable. But they were too late. The Prometheus network activated, and space itself seemed to scream. The quantum weapons didn't destroy their targets through conventional means. Instead, they temporarily altered the fundamental constants of physics within their area of effect. Strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, electromagnetic interaction. All of them shifted just enough to make matter as the Meridians had engineered it impossible. The effect rippled through the star cluster like a wave of unreality. Biological computers that depended on precise quantum states for computation simply ceased to function. Engineered stars that had been transformed into living organisms collapsed back into normal fusion reactions. And the countless young Meridian organisms, their very molecular structure dependent on the laws of physics remaining constant, began to break down. Energy cascade expanding geometrically, Dr. Chen reported, her voice filled with equal parts horror and fascination. The quantum disruption it's using their neural network against them. Their biological interconnections are carrying the effect throughout their entire civilization. The strike force watched as the heart of Meridian civilization tore itself apart, not through violence or force, but through the simple expedient of changing the rules that made their existence possible. In designing weapons to fight humanity, to adapt to physical attacks, they had made themselves utterly dependent on physics remaining constant. Convergence complete, Maya announced. Quantum field collapse in 3, 2, 1. The Prometheus devices burned themselves out, their impossible contents dispersing into normal spacetime. But their work was done. Where there had been a thriving civilization of living ships and organic computers, there was now only cooling plasma and dissipating radiation. Analysis confirms total system failure, HFY reported. The Meridian neural network has collapsed. Without their central coordination, the remaining fleet elements will be unable to maintain their evolved forms. Torres opened a channel to the main fleet. Operation Deadbolt is complete. All ships, begin cleanup operations. Don't let any of them escape to start over somewhere else. As humanity's forces moved in to eliminate the remaining Meridian ships, now reduced to their primitive forms, Torres reflected on the poetry of it all. The Meridians had evolved to be the perfect predators, adapting to any weapon used against them. So humanity had built a weapon that didn't attack them at all. It simply changed the rules of existence itself. Send word back to Earth, he ordered. The galaxy's greatest predator just learned why humans spent so long hiding and preparing. Sometimes the best evolution isn't adapting to the game. It's changing the game entirely. 1 year after Operation Deadbolt, the Avalon Research Station had been transformed from a secret observation post into humanity's primary diplomatic center. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the same quantum imaging array where she had first detected the Meridian threat, but now she watched a very different scene unfold. Representatives from 17 surviving spacefaring species had gathered in the station's main chamber, their ships hanging in space alongside humanity's now public military fleet. These were the remnants of civilizations that had hidden from the Meridians, surviving in the shadows just as humanity had chosen to prepare in secret. The last Meridian holdouts have been confirmed destroyed. Admiral Torres reported to the assembled delegates. Their final adaptation attempts failed against our quantum weaponry. The threat that haunted this galaxy for millennia is finally over. The alien representatives, each broadcasting from their environmentally controlled chambers, showed various signs of what humans had learned to recognize as relief. Some secreted calming pheromones, others flickered with bioluminescent patterns of peace, and a few simply stood in reverent silence. The question, Colonel Patel addressed the gathering, is what comes next. Humanity revealed capabilities that frankly terrify many of you. We understand that fear. We spent 50 years building weapons that could reshape reality itself. The archival mind of the Crystal Collective, a silicon-based intelligence that had preserved the records of dozens of fallen civilizations, pulsed with curious light patterns. You could have emerged earlier, saved many species that fell to the Meridians. Why didn't you? Because we weren't ready, Torres answered simply. Humanity learned from our own history that rushing to fight before you're fully prepared usually leads to disaster. We needed to be certain we could not just fight the Meridians, but eliminate them completely. Dr. Chen's neural link processed incoming data from reconstruction efforts across former Meridian space. What we propose now is a partnership. Humanity has the military and industrial capacity to prevent any future threats like the Meridians. But we need your knowledge, your perspectives, to build something better than just an armed peace. The gathered species began sharing images and data, worlds being reborn from Meridian destruction, civilizations emerging from hiding, and trade routes reopening across the galaxy. Humanity's victory hadn't just ended a threat. It had created an opportunity for a new kind of interstellar community. The Prometheus technology will be secured, Torres assured the gathering. Weapons that can alter space-time constants aren't something that should be used lightly. But we're willing to share our other advances, our manufacturing capabilities, our quantum communication networks, our terraforming systems. Maya stepped forward, Araya projecting detailed technical schematics into the chamber. More importantly, we want to learn from you. Humanity spent 50 years preparing for war. Now we'd like to spend the next 50 helping to rebuild. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had spent millennia hiding from the Meridians now saw a chance not just for survival, but for growth. Humanity's industrial capacity, combined with the surviving aliens' diverse technologies and perspectives, could restore the galaxy faster than anyone had thought possible. There will be challenges, Sarah admitted to Torres later, as they watched the diplomatic delegations depart. Some species are already expressing concern about our military power. They're worried we might become the next Meridians. Torres nodded, looking out at the stars. Stars that now held promise instead of threat. That's why we're not disarming. Humanity will maintain its strength, not to dominate, but to ensure nothing like the Meridians ever threatens the galaxy again. We'll be guardians, not conquerors. Speaking of guardians, Maya joined them, holding up a data crystal. The Crystal Collective just shared some interesting data. Apparently, there are regions of space even the Meridians feared to enter. Places where ancient weapons or entities still sleep. One crisis at a time. Colonel, Torres smiled. But keep the factories running. Something tells me humanity's role as defenders of the galaxy is just beginning. As the diplomatic station buzzed with activity, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. Humanity had emerged from hiding not as conquerors or victims, but as protectors. They had faced the galaxy's greatest predator, and won not through superior evolution or adaptation, but through patience, preparation, and the uniquely human trait of thinking beyond conventional solutions. The stars no longer seemed distant and threatening. They were full of possibilities, of species to meet, cultures to learn from, and yes, perhaps new challenges to face. But humanity had proven something important. Sometimes the best way to face a threat wasn't to evolve to match it, but to spend the time to develop a solution that changed the rules entirely. As the last diplomatic ships departed through quantum space, their crews carrying messages of hope to their hidden colonies, humanity looked to the future with newfound purpose. They had built themselves into a weapon to save the galaxy. Now they would build themselves into something even more powerful, a foundation for a new era of peace, protected by the species that had learned to master the art of patience itself.